This week's episode of The Clear Out was recorded on the 16th of August 2023 at home in Wicklow, and it is largely a discussion of comedies and morality and the place of morality in comedies. And as my stepping off point, I discuss in quite a bit of detail Jennifer Lawrence's current sex comedy, No Hard Feelings, and I compare it or contrast it with Wes Anderson's Asteroid City, another comedy that's out at the moment. Two movies I watched recently, and it just made me think about whether or not morality should feature in a comic movie. So that is pretty much mostly what I'm talking about today. So if you've seen those movies, I think you'll get something out of this. If you like Jennifer Lawrence, if you like Wes Anderson, if you're interested in movies, you'll definitely enjoy this. I also have time for some quick thoughts on the Irish and Australian women's football teams and how they travelled in the Women's World Cup, which is about to come to a conclusion next weekend. And that's kind of it. So morality, movies, personal codes, author, directors, movie aesthetics, and the idea of where we find goodness, or where we go to feel or have affirmed or confirmed that we are good people. As I say at the end of the episode, I don't think it's sex comedies. Okay, that's what's coming up. I hope you enjoy what you hear. I'll see you around the corner. Cheers.
Not gonna change my mind, leaving the dream behind. Keep my mojo.
Hi, my name is Dara Clear, and you're listening to The Clear Out. You're very welcome. If you're a frequent listener, welcome back. If it's only the second time you're listening, definitely welcome back. And if it's your first time to listen, thanks so much. Thanks for clicking on the link that brought you here. I wonder what brought you here. But now that you are here, welcome, and I hope you enjoy what comes next. And what comes next is a mystery to both of us, because I don't know where I'm going, and we'll just have to go on this journey together. If you're new to this, what I do here on the Clear Out podcast is explore life on a very personal level, and I try to lean into vulnerability, openness, honesty, authenticity, and I trust that it will be of use. And I sometimes refer to psychology, philosophy, politics. I sometimes jump off something that's happening in society. I frequently refer to movies and even discuss certain movies at length. I talk about the world of martial arts sometimes, but everything in aggregate contributes to something akin to the examined life. And I am a believer in that self-examination, not from a narcissistic point of view or from an assumption that examining the self will be endlessly fascinating, but rather from the assumption that to understand oneself and know oneself is a recipe for an improved life, a recipe for greater wellness in one's life. And that's what I do here on this particular platform. So if you think that's something you are drawn to, if you think that's something that might be of use to you, if you're curious to hear how I do that and maybe intuitively have a sense of the relatability of that, then there's a good chance you'll find a space here for yourself. Okay, so that definition changes, but it's always an approximation of that. And as ever, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Now, I had been contemplating a few different things to talk about this week. I know I wanted to discuss credibility, but I can't remember what started that idea or what planted that idea in my head. So I'm probably not going to talk about that today. I was also considering just reading some things that I've written in the past. I was revisiting an old blog post from almost exactly 10 years ago about storytelling and the relationship to storytelling and identity and home and belonging. And I thought, well, that might be of some interest, seeing as it was 10 years ago. And then I thought, well, I'll read a story I'd written after that, because it was a post about storytelling. And I was looking at that last night and looking at some other things I'd written on the sort of birthplace of the podcast, which was my website of the same name, The Clear Out, where I wrote think pieces about emotional and psychological well-being. And there is something about the voice I wrote in, my writing voice, so to speak, that when I look back and read those pieces, I don't always love. And maybe that was self-deprecation, not reading that well. Maybe it's just that my writing voice has evolved and I don't really like what it was. Or certainly I know the writing voice I aspire to have would be quite different now, I think. Because when I think about writing now, I want it to be all meat, no fat. I want it to be lean and to the point and on point, even if that may be a point that goes on and on. So yeah, I just found myself going, I don't know if I want to revisit this. I don't know if I want to share this in public, even though it was in the public domain, of course, because it was on my website. And in the short story I was considering reading was kind of dark. And I thought, because I have had that tendency in some of my writing of short stories to go to darkish places. I'm interested in that. And one of my theories about telling stories and writing stories, as expressed in that blog post 10 years ago, was that it's an attempt to reveal ourselves to ourselves, an attempt to make sense of ourselves and who we are and where we are in the world. And when I read the short story, I was like, what exactly am I trying to tap into here? But yeah, so I'm going to spare you those particular ordeals and shift somewhere else. I may revisit that idea another time, but yeah, I'm not that enthusiastic about it at the moment, so I'm gonna let that slide for now. So yeah, I'm going to talk about something else, and I'll come to that shortly. But first, have you been watching the Women's World Cup? The Women's World Cup has been on for a few weeks now. Has it been on for a month already in Australia and New Zealand? The Irish women unfortunately did not make it out of their group. I enjoyed watching them. I really like that team. I've spoken about them before. I love the way they go about their business. I think they're really an impressive outfit. I think we're just missing a bit of quality, and hopefully with the exposure this tournament has given the women's game, we're going to see more talent coming through, because that's what the exposure does. That's what seeing these tournaments does, and hopefully more young girls are going to go, yeah, I want to do that. So my interest in the Irish girls had to end when they exited the competition over a week ago. But as I'm married to an Australian, I was able to keep an eye on the Matildas, the Australian women's team, and unfortunately their interest in the tournament ended this morning. I was working, so I wasn't able to watch it, but I was following it on my phone. They were playing England in the semi-final of the World Cup. But alas, they did not make it, and it does seem on balance that they were pretty much outplayed by the English. The English executed a really good game plan, and it seemed like they bullied Australia off the pitch, and they scored 3 goals, and Australia only scored 1. So that's pretty simple in the end. So Australia and Spain for the final at the weekend. One thing my wife was commenting on was just how much she enjoys the way the women just get on with it. When they've been tackled or end up on the ground, there just doesn't seem to be the same culture of histrionics and posturing and malingering and what's the word I'm trying to think of? You can get booked for it in the men's game. Oh my goodness, my brain is I'm just a bit tired. Fabricating sin, faking it, putting on an injury, faking a bad tackle. What the hell? My brain is, sorry, my vocabulary has abandoned me. That doesn't seem to exist in the women's game. They're not doing that kind of stuff. And to go back to what I'm not going to end up talking about, like that idea of credibility. You see those female players taking those tackles, getting knocked to the ground, and they're just getting up and getting on with it. Come on, let's play football. We're here to play football. Let's keep going. Let's get that ball back into play. And it's refreshing. It is so refreshing. It's so refreshing to see that. You just go, yes, please. Yes, please. More of this. Can we see this in the men's game? Can the men stop carrying on? Can they stop putting it on? Can they stop trying to get their opponents sent off or booked? Can they just remove that cynicism from their football? Now I know the argument is, well, it's naive. It's naive to think they won't do that, and if they don't do it, you're going to be outmaneuvered in terms of the cynical strategies. You'll be outmaneuvered, and you're going to lose by virtue of being naive and thinking you can play clean with clean, good and well-intentioned hearts. But yeah, sometimes that aspect of the men's game, it's really exasperating, and it detracts from the credibility of the men's game. And for non-partisan watchers for casual watchers, I think it puts them off. It puts them off. And you have to think as well, if you're, if you have a son, if you think young boys are watching football and think, oh yeah, that's how you play, that's how you carry on, and that's part of the game. And I see my heroes do that. I see the guys I love to watch, playing. I see my team, do that every week. And they're professionals, and they're up the top of the game, and they're making multiple hundreds of thousands a week in salary. That's obviously the way to do it. And then you ask yourself, well, what's a better model? What is the better behaviour to be taking in and internalizing and kind of pathologizing? And you'd have to say the women's game in terms of how they conduct themselves. Really, you go, yeah, it's a much better example of sportsmanship, and they just emerge with greater integrity and, yes, credibility, even if the pace of the game is slightly below the pace of the male game. But I don't know, I've been enjoying watching it, I must say. Anyway, there you go. I meant to give a shout out to the Irish women a couple of weeks ago, and I just it kept slipping my mind. But not tonight, after the fact. So thanks to the Irish girls, and thanks to the Australian girls for the entertainment that they've provided in this household. So what I want to talk about today, and it's coming from a funny place, and it might stay in that funny place, and that's funny in a literal sense as well as the more figurative sense, because I watched a couple of comedies recently, and one of them in particular got me thinking about the journey in comedies, and in certain kinds of comedies, and how the journey leads to a sort of a moralistic ending. And it just got me thinking about this whole idea, which has come up before when talking about cancel culture and trying to separate the person from the art, when the person is controversial but the art is still very worthy and, yes, credible. Should we cast aspersions on the art if we don't like who has produced it? If you think of somebody like Woody Allen and the controversy that's followed him in recent years, you think about anything that Harvey Weinstein was attached to via Miramax and all his bad behaviour. Bad behaviour sounds a bit too weak, doesn't it? But again, I'm skirting around the edges of woke culture here, and in what I do here on the podcast, I'm not trying to moralize particularly, and in a way that's what I want to talk about today, is the value of that, the questionable value of moralizing, and who should who should moralize, if anyone. And where this has come from is I recently watched the new comedy, the movie No Hard Feelings, with Jennifer Lawrence. And you've heard me speak. I did an episode last year on feminists on screen, like strong women on screen. And I was kind of, the rhetorical question was like, what does a feminist look like? And amongst other actresses, I did speak about Jennifer Lawrence, and I'm a fan of Jennifer Lawrence. I like her energy. I like her earthiness. I like how she looks. I just like what she brings to the screen. I like what she brings to her characters. I find myself attracted to her and attracted to the kind of roles that she plays. And her filmography is a bit patchy. It's a little bit checkered. But this latest movie, of which she was a producer, it's been called a sex comedy, a raunchy sex comedy, and it seemed from the outside a rather peculiar choice at this stage of her career. I mean, Jennifer Lawrence is an Oscar winner, and she's done some pretty high-end, serious projects. Darren Aronofsky's Mother comes to mind. Perhaps Silver Linings Playbook, for which she won her Oscar. She did another David O. Russell movie after that. Two more, actually. American Hustle, which I don't love. Joy, which I haven't seen. She did the science fiction sort of romance mystery Passengers. I wasn't able to watch all of that. I got a bit bored with Chris Pratt. But she's and then her real kind of standout Look at Me performance, which kind of really, when all eyes turned to her, was when she did the film Winter's Bone, which is a very gritty, effective thriller. I thought she was excellent in that. So, in any case, the point I'm trying to make, and of course she did all the Hungers. Have you seen the Hungers Games? The Hunger Games films, as Katniss Everdeen, the heroine, the protagonist who drives those movies. I didn't watch all of them. I did enjoy the first one. I enjoyed the world that was created, the sort of very sort of, fascistic, nasty, there's a real dark edge to those movies. And I just wasn't sufficiently interested to watch the rest of the movies in the series. Is it a trilogy? Is it a quadrilogy? I don't know, but I know my wife watched all of them. She enjoyed them. But again, I thought she was very good in those. There's just, do you know what she has? She has a toughness. And I think there is a sort of there's a sexiness with that toughness. That isn't overtly, look at me, I'm comfortable being sexual, although that was a relevant part of her characterization in Silver Linings Playbook, definitely relevant in Red Sparrow. Very nasty sort of Cold War-esque spy thriller, in which I thought she was really good as well. I think that's maybe an underappreciated movie, but I thought it was very effective, and it's just got a very nasty, just a very nasty current running through the whole, the entire movie, nastiness all around, and she is, I think she's very convincing and compelling as the sort of the fly in the web of a lot of men in that movie. Worth checking out if you like something with a pretty bitter taste. So when she comes along in this movie, No Hard Feelings, it's like, oh, okay. So basically, the fundamental, I mean, you'll know this if you've seen the trailer, but it's a very simple idea. Jennifer Lawrence plays a woman in her early 30s who is employed by a very wealthy couple to seduce their son, who's about to head off to college, to university, and they just think he needs more world experience, and if he has sex, he'll just become a bit more worldly and maybe come out of his shell a bit. And Jennifer Lawrence needs a car. She's an Uber driver. It's one of the ways she makes money. Her car was repossessed, and so the wealthy couple's offer is, well, look, we have this car, we'll give you the car, seduce our son, the car is yours. And the movie is basically how she tries to achieve that objective, and how things get complicated when she starts to feel a bit kind of compromised, morally compromised about the deal, and she realizes she likes this young man who she has to seduce. And he is played by, I'm probably going to know, is it Andrew Barth Feldman? Is that his name? I think it is. So one of his first movie roles, I believe. But he did have a year on Broadway in the musical Dear Evan Hansen, which I believe was a very successful Broadway show. Is it still going? But I think he was playing the lead in that. So like, this is not an untalented performer. And one of the highlights of the movie for me is this really nice scene where he and Jennifer Lawrence are out on a date, and they're sort of reliving the prom that neither of them ever had, that neither of them attended. And so he hires like a stretch limo, and they go to this restaurant, and she knows he plays a bit of music, so she cajoles him into playing something at the piano in the restaurant when the resident pianist takes a break. And he does this really lovely version of Man-Eater by Hall and Oates, and he's really good, and he just plays it, as in he acts it. He acts his nervousness and then his kind of growing confidence really well, and he plays beautifully on the piano, and he sings really well. And Jennifer Lawrence is beguiled, but also clearly somewhat confronted by the lyrics of the song, which in an earlier scene, she pointed out to him that it's not about like an alien or a monster who eats men. It's something else. And her character is characterized as a serial monogamist, and someone who's kind of casually jilting her lovers and leaving them heartbroken because she just doesn't want to commit, and that's all fine. And there are some great set pieces, and there are some very funny moments, but the overall trajectory of the movie, and stop listening now if you plan to see it and you don't want the movie spoiled. I'll give you a beat. There's a beat. That was your time to go, I'm just going to bump on from this, so just fast forward 5 minutes. The overall trajectory of the movie is to fundamentally sort of redeem and mature the Jennifer Lawrence character, and for her and the Andrew Barth Feldman character, I hope I've got that guy's name right, for her and the Andrew Barth Feldman character to achieve this really great platonic relationship, and grand, whatever, but I just found like that, that the way the movie moved further and further away from the comedy, and then leaned into this sort of sincere sweetness, or this sweet sincerity, both are applicable. It just became less interesting, and I think it's hard to walk that line. It's hard to walk that line where you get the laughs, but you have something that's kind of quite believable, and that's what I found myself reflecting on. It's like, okay, so what is the ultimate objective here? Why can't the Jennifer Lawrence character remain dissolute? Why can she not remain sort of uninterested in growing up? Why can't she remain as she was? Does she have to go on a journey? Is that an important part? Is that an important aspect of this narrative? Do we need to see her go, oh, maybe I should do this with my life? I recall in Judd Apatow's Knocked Up, which is like, what, that must be 15 years old now, where Seth Rogen and Katherine Heigl, isn't it, where they have a one-night stand, she gets pregnant, he's been a total kind of slacker, weed-smoking bro, and that doesn't work for her. She's a very successful like TV executive, and his immaturity comes up against her maturity, and ultimately he goes, no, I need to step up, I need to read the baby books, I need to get my shit together, I need to get a job. And you know, in a way, Judd Apatow, that's been his stock in trade. Like his movies, you know, you take great comedy premise, and instead of giving us like an 80 or 90 minute movie, you know, you get like a 2 hour and 15 or a 2 hour and 20 movie. That you get all that, you know, you get a lot of great comedy, but you also get this bro love, male maturation journey played for great sincerity, and played, you know, and played for what? Like is that the moral journey? You know, men have to grow up and step up and become mature. I mean, I've no issue with that, but I question its validity or its usefulness or its entertainment value in a comedy. So, you know, in my opinion, like those Judd Apatow comedies, they just got weighted down with that aspect of his storytelling and his desire to explore male maturation and male friendship and male, you know, brotherly love. And I mean, what does that make them? Does it make them unsuccessful, or do they need their own genre? Are they dramedies, comic dramas? They're definitely not comic dramas. I think they're, you know, yeah, they're dramedies. But I suppose my question is, do we need, you know, does our art, I mean, like specifically, do comedies need to be moral? And you'd have to say, God, no. That surely isn't the end point of a great comedy. And I think I mentioned a couple of episodes ago that my daughter and I rewatched Some Like It Hot a few weeks ago. And there's certainly no morality tale attached to that. It's a comedy played, you know, from start to finish as comedy. And it's, you know, the characters are pursuing their appetites. I mean, the pursuit of sex is a huge part of Some Like It Hot. The pursuit of Marilyn Monroe is a huge part of Some Like It Hot. Her desirability as a sex object is a huge part of Some Like It Hot. But the pursuit of Jack Lemmon in drag, the pursuit of Jack Lemmon as a woman, is also a huge part of Some Like It Hot. And it just keeps that, it walks that line so well, and the gags keep coming. And so that is a far more successful comedy than any of these other ones I've mentioned so far. And I don't know if anybody needs to be redeemed at the end of a comedy. Are they counter impulses? You know, like, and what is, and so there, that I'm thinking this, like, I mean, if a comedy makes me laugh and entertains me and amuses me, and, you know, makes me laugh at the, you know, the absurdity of people, or how far a character can go to get what they want, or how far they can lean into who they are, and when that's played with good writing and played by great comic actors, it's a thing of joy. But if a comedy is framed inside a morality tale, I think it's already losing. like right from the start, right from the get go. There was a funny thing in that No Hard Feelings as well. Funny as in strange and not successful. And again, spoiler alert, this is really minor, but Jennifer Lawrence has two friends, a couple who are expecting a baby, and twice she tries to present them with a gift, which is a mobile to suspend over the baby's cot. And she's decorated it with little surfboards as the objects for the baby to look at whenever they're born. And the gag that we're supposed to think is so amusing is that the couple think the mobile is horrific or horrendous or awful. And I'm looking at it going, that mobile looks perfectly fine. And I think a baby would be very happy to play with that mobile. I'm like, why is this funny? It's not funny that the pregnant couple are not being, I don't know, they're not a lot of fun, or they don't know what they're looking at. Anyway, whatever. So another, I don't have anything else to say about that movie. I think, what are the benefits of seeing Jennifer Lawrence's character mature? What's the payoff there? What's the payoff to see her, go, oh, I'm not going to be that person anymore. I'm going to be this person, and now I'm a good person, and I'm nice to this young man, and we're going to be friends. It's still quite an unlikely friendship ultimately because of the age difference. But I'm just questioning that. Because it's a very particular type of comedy. So there are other comedies, and another one I watched recently was Wes Anderson's Asteroid City. And Asteroid City is not raucous. It's not raunchy. It doesn't hit you in the belly. And I'd make that distinction between a belly laugh and a brain laugh. And there are belly laughs, there are sort of body laughs to be had in No Hard Feelings. Asteroid City, as you would expect with Wes Anderson, it's that, these are brain laughs. It's a bit more intellectual. It's a bit more highbrow. And again, depending on your sense of humour. Maybe you are someone who finds Wes Anderson's movies real kind of rib clutchers. You're holding yourself together because you're laughing so hard. I find them. I like Wes Anderson's movies. I realise I've seen them all except his very, very first one, Bottle Rocket. But I remember seeing Rushmore when it came out and really enjoying that. I remember seeing The Royal Tenenbaums, which I watched recently again, and really enjoying that. His animated ones, Fantastic Mr. Fox, The Isle of Dogs, The Grand Budapest Hotel, Moonrise Kingdom. I've enjoyed all of them, really. The Darjeeling Limited. I'm sure. Oh yeah, the what's the underwater one? I've gone blank. Something Bizou, isn't it? Steve Bizou? Zizou? Bill Murray's in it. The Brazilian singer Seu Jorge is in it as well, doing David Bowie covers, which were very cool. The Life Aquatic. Oh, anyway, I'm sorry, I've gone blank on that one. Anyway, look, if you know Wes Anderson movies, you know what I'm talking about. They're good movies, and he's got this kind of his repertoire, his repertory company of actors who crop up again and again in his movies. But Asteroid City, for me, I'll rewatch it at some point. It's like a Wes Anderson movie taken to, the absolute end point of Wes Anderson-ness, and squeezing out or ironing out anything that is more messy, more identifiably human and believable and relatable, and making everything just very, very tight and lean and cerebral, and arch and knowing and meta. And if you compare that to like some of the jousting between the young, like the 18-year-old Jason Schwartzman and Bill Murray in Rushmore, which I found hilarious at the time, and Gene Hackman's absolutely hilarious and gorgeous performance in the Royal Tenenbaums, because he really is the motor of that movie. His kind of irascibility, his immorality, but again, just a great comic performance that is very believable. And you go, yeah, I believe this guy exists. And I watch Asteroid City, which is, I guess, nearly 20 years later, or over 20 years later, and I don't know if I believed any of those characters. And and that's not necessarily the point. And again, leaning into the meta-ness of Wes Anderson, Asteroid City has a very complicated structure, which involves a televised, in watching the movie, it's a televised version of a play that's being filmed, or it's a filmed version of a televised version of a play, and you're jumping behind scenes and backstage into the writer's room and back to the main setting of Asteroid City, which is this tiny little stopping point outpost beside the nuclear testing sites in the whatever 40s 50s, in an American kind of desertscape, and you've just got all these beautifully dressed, beautiful looking actors, shot beautifully, but everything is so self-contained and so held and so poised, and again so arch. There's just a cocked eyebrow to the whole thing. And I found myself wondering, and again, if you know anything about Wes Anderson, you know how well designed and how beautiful looking his films are, and they've become more and more so as he's continued along his career. And this time I just found myself going, is Wes Anderson, is he a movie maker, or is he just an aesthetician? Like, it's all about the aesthetics and what it looks like. And I'm being a bit disingenuous saying that, because obviously he's a movie maker. Obviously he has a very distinctive style. He has a very distinctive voice. And maybe for me sometimes it's like the mood you're in when you're watching it. Or The French Dispatch, that was his one from last year, another kind of quirky one. I think someone's made, someone's made the point, or made the comment that, Wes Anderson is just a New Yorker short story on celluloid. There's a certain highbrow literati voice, and aesthetic that is just that. It's sort of a New Yorker pastiche. And to connect this back to, how I was discussing No Hard Feelings, they aren't morality tales. That's not what Wes Anderson is interested in. And to me, that immediately recommends it more than No Hard Feelings, even though More Hard Feelings gave me more of a laugh in its individual moments and in particular set pieces, And No Hard Feelings also had moments that were quite moving. And sorry, just a special shout out to Matthew Broderick in No Hard Feelings as the father of the young man involved. Yeah, Matthew Broderick is, I think he's an unsung comic. I don't want to say genius, it's too much, it's too hyperbolic. But man, he's good. He's good. He just does something. There's something about his kind of, I don't know, his crumpled survivalist instinct inside a very a very sort of soft body and soft soul that is I find very, very funny. And I find him, I thought he was hilarious in No Hard Feelings, and even his name was hilarious, the character's name. I won't spoil it for you. You should go and look it up if you're not going to go and see it. But yeah, so Wes Anderson, there's no moralizing there. You know, take these characters as you find them. Take these characters in this world as you find them. And all I'm saying is that if I compare Asteroid City to the Royal Tenenbaums, I kind of believed the characters in the Royal Tenenbaums, and I didn't really believe the characters in Asteroid City. They didn't feel real to me. They felt too far into pastiche and too far into that detached, emotionless affect. And I just found myself a little bit irritated by it, and going, I don't know if I want to keep spending time with these people, because I'm not going on a journey with them. And yeah, cleverness. I mean, I was going to say cleverness for its own sake is never interesting, but again, that's probably a bit disingenuous. So I mean, I know Wes Anderson knows exactly what he's doing, and the references are there for a reason, and the worlds he's creating and the worlds he refers to, it's not accidental. I don't think there's, again, and that's a hallmark of a good movie director. Nothing is accidental. Yeah, of course there can be bad movie makers, and they maybe nothing they did was accidental, and it's just bad movie making and bad storytelling, bad decision making. I mean, that's possible. So just being decisive and intentional doesn't actually necessarily result in a quality experience, but in Wes Anderson's case it does. But you could do worse than to see those two movies and compare them and have a look at this sort of thesis of mine, like, let's remove the morality and keep the comedy. Yeah, I mean, I recently rewatched Noah Baumbach's The Squid and the Whale, which is one of his early movies. Did I speak about this? I can't remember if I spoke about this. Laura Linney and Jeff Daniels play the parents of two sons who are breaking up in, I guess, 70s New York. Both parents are authors. Her star is rising, his is on the wane. Each son sort of allies themselves with either of the parents, and it's Jesse Eisenberg, isn't it? Who plays the older son, and he allies himself with Jeff Daniels, and a brilliant performance by Jesse Eisenberg. I mean, he is so good at playing complicated, extremely self-conscious, maybe neurotic young men of a certain stripe. And he is particularly good in The Squid and the Whale as someone who is has been shaped and molded by his father, and had his impressions of the world formed by his father, and his father is pretentious and a bit of a blowhard. And Jesse Eisenberg, he just captures the sort of the aping and the mimicry of that so well. And the way he drops his knowledge that is pure posturing and has nothing real underneath it, other than this is an opinion that I heard my father express, and now I'm re-expressing it, and this gives me credibility, this gives me depth. And Jesse Eisenberg can play those characters so well. And I mean, again, I'm not sure what that translates into now, as he's a much older actor. I'm trying to think what the last thing I saw him in was. I'm not sure I've seen him in anything in recent years. Obviously, The Social Network, but that's 10 years old, isn't it? Maybe more. 13. That's a great movie, and he's great in it, and entirely unlikable. Playing Mark Zuckerberg. Maybe someone who felt more human than Mark Zuckerberg comes across in real life. But I was going to say that those characters, Jeff Daniels and Jesse Eisenberg in The Squid and the Whale, like, they are characters who are like Wes Anderson characters, except they were being played, as real people. And I think that's something that maybe Wes Anderson has moved further and further away from. That's his choice. He can do that. But in a way, I think, my taste is I enjoy those characters when I feel I believe them. I believe this is happening. I believe, these are real world people. I find that more compelling, and there's greater capacity for humour. But then if you take a movie like Anchorman, to jump very much in the other direction, the Will Ferrell movie, again, we're going back quite a while. Anchorman is, it certainly was, I haven't watched it in a few years, is great entertainment and pure comedy. And just, goofy and silly, and maybe built on the back of Will Ferrell's strengths as a comic performer. And that's someone for whom more is always more. That might not be how you feel as the audience member. But yeah, it's funny. I was listening to Sean Fennessy and Amanda Dobbins on the Big Picture podcast, and they were talking about No Hard Feelings and about Jennifer Lawrence's career in general. And I won't really repeat what they were saying, because you can go and listen to that yourself. I think it's, if you like movies, it's a podcast that's always worth listening to. But they were talking about like sex comedies in general in that conversation, and they referred to Wedding Crashers, which was again, I think, a very successful comedy with Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn as two ne'er-do-wells who would, inveigle their way into weddings in order to sleep with women, and they just let themselves in, and they just had their different shticks, and it's very funny. But on the Big Picture, the guys were kind of looking askance at Wedding Crashers and fundamentally suggesting that it was a little bit off. And they were taking a position of kind of moralising about wedding crashers. And I just kind of, that always makes me, it just stops me in my tracks a bit. Like, oh, really? Can it not just be what it was and let it be what it was and enjoy it for what it was? Do we have to, again, try and bring our sensibilities to bear and draw this connection between entertainment and morality? Our entertainment can be entertaining, but it must remain moral. I reject that. I reject that wholeheartedly. I go, no, stop. Let art provoke. Let it cross the line. Let it transgress. And we can make our own minds up because we're bloody grown-ups. And we can decide, that's a bit dodgy, or that's not my taste. Or we can allow ourselves be provoked. We can be provoked and let that be what it is. And we can be critical and we can go, no, it's just provocation, or it's just a bit tasteless, or it's a bit tacky, or it's a bit sexist, or it's a bit puerile. And particularly if we stay in the area of comedies, if you stay in the area of sex comedies, and then you got to ask yourself, well, who's this for? Is this for me? Am I the target audience? I suspect I'm not. I think historically sex comedies were directed at young men, teenagers, and guys in their early 20s. And okay, let it be what it is. As my daughter tells me when I'm sometimes passing by the TV and I see a cartoon she's watching or a movie that I don't particularly approve of because I think this is not a good movie, my daughter will turn around to me and say, it's not for you. And that is relevant. That is relevant to the subjective experience. Yeah. Okay, so the only other thing I'd add to this particular topic is to ask the question, do we want to feel good? And I'm not talking about the sensual aspect of that. I'm not talking about like hedonistic experience that feels good. I want to do that. I mean, do we want to feel like we are good people? And is that why people impose morality impose it onto their art or onto their storytelling? Is there an assumption that people want to consume that and be reassured that that character is a good person now, and I approve of that person, and I leave here feeling good about myself because that's what my choice would be in life, or that's what I would choose for that person? That's not very interesting, is it? That's not that interesting. Don't we want to see difference on screen and in our stories? Don't we want to live the vicarious experience of the forbidden, of the transgressive? Don't we want to see these things play out on screen because we can't do them in real life? I mean, isn't that why we have an appetite for violence on screen, if that's your thing? Isn't that why we have an appetite for criminals, for murderers, for adulterers, unfaithful partners, Isn't that why we have an appetite for extreme characters? Isn't that why we have an appetite for beautiful people on screen? Because because maybe we don't see enough of them in real life. I mean, it has its place. It has its place. And you know, you've heard me before, and relatively recently, I did an episode on Richard Gere and his particular charms just a few weeks ago. But you heard me on that episode talk about the movie critic David Thompson, of whom I'm a huge fan, and you know, I've read quite a bit of David Thompson's work and quite a bit of his writing and thinking about movies, and his fundamental position seems to be, you know, movies are, you know, it's a sexual experience, and we're voyeurs, and we sit in a dark room and go on a journey of the id, and we live out our fantasies vicariously in that darkened room where we cannot be seen, where we are the watchers. And I mean, you know, that's not his single premise, but it is a core aspect of his thinking and his kind of movie theory. And he is a great watcher of movies and has brilliant thoughts and perceptions and observations about movies. I highly recommend his book, The Big Screen. If there was only one David Thompson book to get, well, two really. I mean, again, I'm repeating myself, I know, but have you seen where he discusses page a movie, 1,000 movies, and leaves you in no doubt about his opinion of their merit, good or bad. That's a great book to dip into. But then there's his kind of comprehensive history of the cinema, The Big Screen, which is brilliant stuff as well. And I'm telling you, I've no doubt that David Thompson would share my opinion about the appropriateness of morality in comedies anyway, you know. Like in other movies, maybe morality has more relevance. But yeah, ask yourself that question. You know, what do you want to feel when you go to the movies? Like, are the movies, you know, is that the place, or is that experience of watching a movie, is that where you go to feel better about yourself? Is that where you go to be reassured that you are a good person? I mean, I don't know. That's not what I watch movies for, I must say. And I think, yeah, like to me, that movie, No Hard Feelings, Jennifer Lawrence, that kind of moral ending really undermined the whole thing and just wasn't very interesting at all. Anyway, there you are. Okay, look, I'm recording this late, so I'm going to leave it there. And yeah, I may return. You know, I will return to movies again. Yeah, as always, I'll be trying to draw connections to personal philosophy or psychology, or yeah, today was sort of morality in that specific context. Your morality, I think, is it's something to work out for yourself. And, you know, do you trust what you've been handed by the world you've been born into? Do you trust the authority figures and institutions in your life? Do they represent something moral, or are they failing? Do they fail? So where do you find your morality? Like, where do you locate it? Is it in Is it in faith? Is it in religion? Is it in government? Is it in institutions? Can you find it within? And what does that mean anyway? What does it mean to be moral? What code are you living by? I always come back to my belief is you've got to work it out for yourself. You've got to work it out for yourself. You'll be given plenty. We're given plenty as we grow, as we come up in life, as we negotiate ourselves and negotiate the different stepping stones to adulthood and beyond. We're given a lot of help. We're given a lot of guidance. We're given a lot of examples. We're given a lot of advice. But ultimately, we've got to work it out for ourselves. And we really have to work it out when we experience pushback, when we experience our own crises of faith. I don't think sex comedies are where the answers will be found. No. But you never know. You never know. Inspiration and recognition and reflection, they can come from strange places. They can come from unexpected places. And I like to think there's a usefulness in being open to that. And being open, and that, I suppose, is cultivating a sort of a sensitivity and being observant and responsive, and going, yeah. Like I think, the final thing I'll say about that, no hard feelings, like that scene, I liked the man-eater scene. I liked it because it captured something about the romance of getting to know somebody and being surprised by them and being opened up by them. And there was something, again, like in the way Jennifer Lawrence played it, that was really lovely. And I think that's what you want. Now, that doesn't really relate to morality. It reveals my interest in romance and what that does for me, and that tells me, I can make that something moral and go, can you be, is it possible to be romantic if you're cynical about life and cynical about people's intentions and cynical about the inevitable demise of your personal idealism as the scales are lifted from your eyes by the trials and tribulations of life? See, for me, I don't know, is that a moral position to challenge that and go, no, there's a better life to be lived if you can take joy from life, if you can keep your belief in romance alive, if you're open to being moved. I am a big believer in that. Is that a morality? I don't know if it's a morality, but it's definitely a position. Okay, listen, my position now is to get off this mic and take myself to bed, in fact. So I will love you and leave you. I hope you found this diverting and of some interest. And I will be back next week with something else. You can throw me some love on social media. The links will be there wherever you're listening to this: Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, now known as X. And if you enjoy what you hear, you can support this show financially by becoming a patron of the show. And you can use the Patreon link. That's patreon.com/theclearout. And then you can just throw a few bob a week to support this independent podcast, and help me keep it going and sustain it. And it's a vote of confidence anyway, and a vindication for what I try to do here. And it would be very welcome. But if you can't do that, a comment, a share, a recommend, a rating, a like, that all helps and is very much appreciated by me. Okay, that's it. Take it easy, mind yourselves, and I will talk to you next week. All the best. Bye.